Hey, everybody. Monday, June 12th, John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report. Welcome all. I am live to you from Washington, D.C. We're going to cover the latest news from Ukraine. Let me first get TikTok rolling here on my iPad. And then why don't you introduce yourselves while we take about 2 minutes for folks to arrive? Our usual. Mirror, mirror, mirror. There we go. Excellent. Woo, and I have a little more tea to wake me up from my nap. Ah, there we go. Hello, all. Hey, TikTokers. Hope you guys can hear me. You never know. With TikTok, you never know. Here, turn off all my devices. What's going on, folks? Busy news day for a Monday. We had a good weekend in Ukraine, so it'll be a nice news day. Pretty nice news day, so that's good. Hey, Andrew in Taiwan. Anyway, yeah, say where you're from, if you would. Like I said, we'll wait about a minute or two for folks to arrive. It always takes a little bit of time for people to get the notification on TikTok and YouTube. And thank you, Ron. Who's that? Ron, who was that? Oh, Ron. And who was that? Just put and Sexeed. Thank you. And there you go. I was wondering when that would show up. I was just going to say there are new gifts on TikTok for the beginning of the month. Although it's June 12th. I don't know why, but they suddenly got a ton of really cool new gifts. Thank you, John. There you go. I was trying to grab. I did get it. Good. I was trying to grab it so I could see it. Thank you, Marino. Oh, too much fun. I like what the TikTok ought to switch the gifts more often. That was pretty fun. Anyway, hey guys, welcome all. Oreo's evil. Oreo's going evil. Yep. Thanks, Happy Beach. Oh, and we got more giraffes on TikTok. Look out. Wait, what's the giraffe? Boo! Who was the giraffe? The giraffe's the one that hides from me. Oh, there it is. AJ, thank you for that. Dinan, I was going to see if I could move. I think I can make the tusk move if I move my head really fast on the elephant thing. So they're giving, again, the cool gifts on TikTok. All right. I'm going to get started. I will get started. So welcome, everybody. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report. This is my nightly show, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S., where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Today's show is a busy one, which is good. We got a lot of news. Good news. Overall, good news for Ukraine. Thank you. Is that Magical? Thank you, Magical, for that. And Teresa for the butterflies. The way the show works is first half of the show, I will walk you guys through the top stories. Second half of the show, we'll take questions. I do very much appreciate your guys' gifts because I always tell folks I do this for free. I do it full time. Thank you, Tom, for those gifts. I do it full time. And this is my job. So in order to pay the bills, you guys are my salary. So thank you. Please do keep the gifts coming. On TikTok, I will always try to do a shout out if I see those gifts that fly up on the screen. The little ones, there's just too many. I apologize. But the big ones on the screen, I will always do a shout out when I see it. For those of you over on YouTube, I always appreciate the super chat questions and the super stickers. And as a thank you for the super chat questions, I will always get to those as the next thing I talk about, even if we're not doing Q&A. Oh, it does move. I was making sure that thing moved. That was pretty good. Thank you, 863. Sorry, I was busy playing with the trunk. Thank you, TikTok novice. I didn't see who gave it. Thank you, TikTok. Cheryl. All right, guys. See, everyone, this is a new gift on TikTok that looks like an elephant on your face. And it's like you've got an elephant's trunk and the whole thing. It's very cool. In any case, all right, guys. So let's dive into the news. It's day 473 of Vladimir Putin's 3-day special military operation in Ukraine. Lot of news this weekend. Overall, very good. Let me start by saying, first of all, it's way too soon. Okay, actually, this is the perfect time to say it, and you will know I'm telling the truth because it's been a great news weekend for Ukraine in terms of how they're doing in the war. That is why I'm telling you we shouldn't get this excited early on about good or bad news because we don't know. It's way too soon. Thank you, Michael. For the problem, of course, with those is for the other. Just so folks know, I've got TikTok on my iPad, and I've got YouTube and Twitch and everybody else. Thank you, Dinan, on my laptop. So every time I get the TikTok gift, it's an elephant. It's literally the ears and the nose. I go like this to make it move, and you guys are looking at me going, "What is he doing?" So thank you for that. But as I was saying, thanks, Carol. Because Ukraine did very well this weekend and today, by the way, I can say to you, don't get too excited. But at the same time, don't get too despondent if you hear bad news. It's too early. It's way too early. Part of the reason is that Ukraine has still not, I mean, there's a number of things going on. One, they still have a lot of troops that aren't even fighting yet. Okay. So a lot of their best guys are not fighting, which is fine. They don't need them yet, right? They're kind of testing the waters, probing different areas to see how the Russian defenses are doing. Oh, Nick. Wow. Whoa. Sorry. Nick just got a really cool. That was cool. That was cool, Nick. Thank you. I've never seen that one before. That may be a new one, actually. Also, that was a very nice one, I know, but that looked like that was a new one. Wow. Thank you for that. Um, the Ukraine still has a lot of troops to throw at this and a lot of weapons. They haven't. They're still, they're still in the initial phases where, like I said, they're testing. The other thing is Ukraine still has a lot of nasty Russian defenses coming up. The map, the newly tightened map, a lot of the battles over the last 2 days, Ukraine has been fighting in a number of areas. I think I told probably on Friday, we already knew this. There were like 3 big areas the Ukrainians were fighting, at least as of now. They were more or less, I'm going to try to get more or less around here, and up here by Bakhmut. So Bakhmut, this was, I think, Orikhiv, and this was, oh my God, oh my God, Novaya Vasilivska or whatever. I'm going to get it wrong. Oh my God, more cool gifts. These are really cool. Sorry, guys. I always have to thank the TikTokers for their gifts. That was really, they got a whole bunch of cool. That was a very nice one again, but thank you, Chad. That was cool. They've got a lot of really cool gifts now. Wow. Good for TikTok. It's about time they updated these things. So there's 3 main areas, right, where the Ukrainians have been fighting. Boom and boom. Bakhmut, they had some success the last couple of days. They keep slowly getting more land north and south of Bakhmut. So they're kind of coming down like this to Bakhmut from the suburbs. That's good news. Boop, boop, boop. Down here, I haven't heard as much about Orikhiv as I have about over here. So the one over here, they're coming down towards Mariupol, okay? And they've come down. They've done thank you, Thomas. They've done very well. In the last few days, they've taken 7 towns, and the 7 towns are basically like, right, like coming down in a row south, heading directly towards Mariupol, which is great. You know what, Patricia? If it's too much, you can leave. Just letting you know. One more time, and you're out. Sorry, we've got somebody being a bit of a troll over on YouTube. So sorry, she threw me. Oh yeah. So the last couple days, we've got multiple towns taken by the Ukrainians coming down, which is amazing. And one town in particular is really great. The town that the Ukrainians took today, 6 yesterday and the day before, I think, and 1 today. The town today is Storozheve. I even Googled how to pronounce it correctly, so I'm pretty close. Storozheve. And the neat thing about Storozheve, Vlad, our friend in Ukraine, who has been working with us on all the fundraising we do and that kind of stuff. Vlad sent me a video and he said, actually, I'll show you guys really quick, but it's 2 videos. One shows a bunch of Ukrainian troops raising the flag and all of this, right, for a town they took. It's Storozheve, this town. And then he shows me one of a specific, thank you, Lee, of a specific Ukrainian soldier. And I'm going to show you guys, actually, it's 30 seconds. I'm going to show each of you here. Specific Ukrainian soldier. And this is a Ukrainian soldier in Storozheve. And he's holding up a weapon, a bomb, or a grenade or whatever it is that goes onto a drone, and thanking us because when we did that fundraiser a few weeks ago, remember we did the fundraiser a few weeks ago and we were raising money for the drone extender? And basically it's a product that extends the range of drones. Right? That basically a drone can only go so far before it loses connections with the person who's controlling the drone, right? And the extender is like a Wi-Fi extender in your house. It helps the drones go farther, which is great. Well, our drone extenders went to these troops on the front. You guys helped raise the money. These troops on the front line. The troops that had all the successes in the last 2 days that you were hearing about, Ukraine was getting town after town, those were the guys we helped with the drone extenders, and they did a video for us thanking us. And oh, hang on. Oop, hang on. I'll show each of you because some of you on each helped out. I'll show you, and then I'll show you guys in a second once I show the TikTokers. But it was great, absolutely great. And as I said, what's neat is that our donations were going to help folks literally on the front lines of the counteroffensive. I mean, the successes of the last few days are the actual troops who we were helping. I'll show you guys now too. It's just, I mean, I love this again because I think it's okay. Now you guys can wait while I show the YouTubers. Yep. Isn't that great? I mean, they wanted. Vlad just showed it to me. I was like, anyway, they wanted to do something to thank us all because they were very thankful for what you guys had done. So thank you. I just think that is so cool. That is absolutely just so cool. Anyway, so this is great. Thank you, Yukon. So, but as I said, they've had some successes in the last couple of days, which is great, but it's going to get a lot harder. Oh, that's what I was telling you. So the defensive lines. So what happened is with the successes of the last couple of days, including the town that we've got, we're helping supply the troops in that town. They're getting closer and closer. Mariupol. I'd have to see exactly on the map. Maybe they're here, about halfway, whatever. The problem is they are still. Thank you, Brent, for the hat. They're still north of the major Russian defenses. So there's, the big line, whether, the Maginot line or whatever, but the big line of Russian defenses that goes all the way across east to west, that's still in front of them. And I don't know when they're going to get to it, whether it's a matter of days, whether it's a couple of weeks, who knows, right? It just takes how much time you get there. But that's going to be very difficult. Thank you, Courtney. And, potentially very deadly for them, even if they win, potentially a very damaging to their vehicles and to the soldiers themselves. So, hey, I'm happy to get the positive news. All I'm saying is don't let the negative get you down and don't let the positive get you too up. Thank you for that, Marcy. Appreciate that. There were explosions and artillery attacks reported today in the Russian occupied cities of Tokmak and Melitopol. Melitopol over here and Tokmak. I'm totally forgetting Ukrainian friends. I apologize. I forgot to look. I look at the map before the show whenever there's, and I've seen Tokmak before, but I'm forgetting where it is. Melitopol's right here. But it's behind Russian lines, which means, as we said, the artillery fire is coming from the Ukrainians, but it also is quite possible that these are Ukrainian resistance, right? That are basically the citizens who kind of blend in because they're in the occupied territories, but are secretly working with Ukrainian intelligence to blow things up. Because a lot of that's been happening. They've been blowing up a lot of Ukrainian citizens who have been collaborating with the Russians. Basically, Ukrainians who are working with the Russians against Ukraine, and they've literally been blowing them up in their cars. Thank you, Bonnie, for that. So they've also been, causing attacks and things to help get ready for this, which I'm going to talk about in a second. Actually, I'll talk about it right now. I don't even know if I had it on here. Yeah, I was going to mention it just next. So there were 2 train attacks this weekend on the train tracks, and in Ukraine. In Ukraine, but in Russian-occupied Ukraine. One of them was, let me get I'll get my pen. The pen at least helps a little bit. So one of them, look at the tip of the pen, more or less around here. Okay. The other one, more or less around here, so right before Melitopol. Now, what is important about this is these 2 train attacks, they blew up train tracks. The one here is the major train track that comes from here. Well, what comes over here? The Kerch Bridge, that bridge that was blown up last fall. You go across the bridge 10, 12 miles, and you hit Russia. So this is the main train track from Russia that comes across here, was blown up. This up here, the main train track from Russia all the way over here. So what the Ukrainians did this weekend is they blew up the train access of Crimea of any Russian resupply. Now, the Russians have lots of people that fix the trains. They will be able to fix. The Russians claim they could fix it in hours. The experts were saying, it'll take maybe a couple days. Sorry, Tokmak is roughly 35 miles northeast of Melitopol. Okay. So Tokmak is okay. So Tokmak is very close to Melitopol anyway, the city I was talking about, where there were explosions this weekend. The Ukrainians were doing more attacks. So by cutting off track here and track here, Crimea is isolated, which is great. Why does it matter? Because they need supplies. Thank you, Martin. They need more ammunition. They need more soldiers. They need more fuel, right? They need all of that. That's getting cut off. It's preparing Ukraine for preparing the area for the Ukrainian attack that's coming, which is great. Now, again, the Russians can probably fix it in a couple days, but then you attack again, right? I mean, then you just go after it again and blow it up again. But anyway, very important. And again, those are more shaping attacks, right? Those are more of the attacks where the Ukrainians are setting the ground for a big attack. Thank you, 83, for that. In other words, trying to sort of starve Crimea of fuel, thank you. Who's that? J-O-D or Jody? Thank you, Jody. Trying to starve them of fuel, trying to starve them of weapons, trying to starve them of troops so that they're weaker when Ukraine finally decides to do the big attack against Crimea. This was kind of a weird story today. Sorry, I have a little more tea. I thought it was weird because, thank you, Courtney. It's a bit too, it's one of those stories where you look and you go, like the Ukrainians say in their videos, you go, shh, like, why are you saying this? Listen to this. A British official anticipates major Ukrainian attacks in the Donbass. The Donbass is this region over here, okay? Major Ukrainian attacks in the Donbass in the next few days. This is from Sky News. Tobias Ellwood, the head of I think it's from Sky News. Tobias Ellwood, the head of the UK Parliament's Defense Committee, believes Ukraine would launch a major attack against Russian forces in the eastern Donbass region in the next few days. I don't know why the hell he would say that. Now, thank you, Bonnie. The fact that he said it and was already reported on the news means me telling you this is not harming anybody. The story was already out there. The Russians already heard. Unless he's saying it as disinformation, the guy, thank you, Courtney, the guy should, STFU. There's no reason to be saying this. There's just no reason to be saying this. Unless you're trying to deceive the Russians, unless the attack is going to be elsewhere, then go for it. Otherwise, don't show off. This is like that guy. This is like that kid, that 21-year-old who's going to go to jail for the rest of his life because he stole all the classified information and put it on Discord because he wanted to brag to his friends about how much he knew. That's what this is. The guy's just bragging that he's getting briefings on Ukraine. Shut up already, right? Anyway, it's a very weird story. Now, there was some bad news in the last few days. Two things. One, I reported on this either on Friday or Saturday. Since I do the Saturday show now, I never quite know which day it was. The Russians claimed to blow up a lot of tanks. That was a lie. They ended up blowing up farm equipment. We know that. But there was another attack where the Russians did blow up a number of tanks, the Ukrainians' Leopard tanks, and not blow up. I shouldn't say that. Damaged, I should say. Damaged a number of Ukrainian tanks and a number of Ukrainian Bradley fighting vehicles. The fact that they're damaged means it's possible they can be repaired. I don't know. Depends kind of what the territory they're in is, how badly they're damaged. The good news is the troops were able to get out and get away to safety. That's good on a humane level, right? We don't want people dying. It's good on a level of moving forward because you've now got these tank crews who live to fight another day. Thank you, Timothy, for that. And Bonnie and Chad, who live to fight another day, which is good. But hang on a second. I was going to tell you something on this. Oh, yeah. Okay. So CNN reported on this. Listen to this. This was via Sky News, but it was CNN. Per Sky News, Ukraine has lost 16 U.S. supplied armored vehicles, the Bradleys, in the first few days of its counteroffensive. CNN reports the number of Bradley infantry fighting vehicles destroyed or damaged amounts to 15% of those Washington gave Kyiv. Jacob Janowski of Oryx, the Dutch website which collated the data, told CNN many of the vehicles were damaged and abandoned rather than destroyed, suggesting they have been doing their job, carrying troops more safely to offensive positions. Also, There is a report that the U.S. is going to announce more aid tomorrow to Ukraine, and at least one report I saw. Now, I don't know if this is true. I'm telling you a rumor, but it was passed by people I trust. That the U.S. aid is going to include more Bradley fighting vehicles, which is good. But again, these vehicles, thank you, Nico, are going to get destroyed in war. That's their job. As I said, the Bradley fighting vehicles are there so that if the troops get attacked, and they do get attacked, they've got to, this is so they don't get, so the troops don't get harmed. The vehicle takes the damage, and guess what? Then they leave the vehicle. So, it's a lot, but hopefully they're getting more. And I will say this again, nobody who's an expert on this is really, now the other thing, let me say the other thing. The other thing is that seems to be the only, I would say the only one or two battles with Ukraine where the Ukrainians didn't do well. Okay. Everywhere else, there was something like, well, there's even more now. As of, I think, Saturday or Sunday, there was something like 40 battles the Ukrainians had already had with the Russians. Thank you, Zink. And the only one the Russians could point to where they beat the Ukrainians and actually destroyed Ukrainian vehicles was the one where they lost a lot of the Leopards and a lot of the Bradleys. But it was one battle. And the Russians kept sharing the same video. Even this weekend, they again shared the same video of the same battle. And again, that sucks, right? But it's one battle. Now, I will say this too. The experts were saying that a big part of the problem, thank you, Ellie. And again, these are experts around the world who I follow online. Thank you, Danan, who I follow online. And they were saying that some of them, at least who I trust, their analysis was that the Ukrainians screwed up. Their commander or whoever it was that ordered them into the attack screwed up, sent them into a minefield. Thank you, Shane. Also, they were attacked by drones, and they didn't have helicopters and drones, and they didn't have the air cover they were supposed to have from Gepard, whatever you call the Gepard, but the Gepard vehicle, the air defense vehicle, and others. And the feeling was basically that these were, thank you, Courtney, that these were avoidable, that the Ukrainians basically screwed up. But it was the kind of thing where, and I think it's funny, this is bad news and good news. It was an obvious screw up, meaning it's the kind of thing where you learn from it and it never happens again. But also somebody effed up who may not have a job anymore. But you know what I mean? Like it's in a way better to have it be something like that. Although at the same time, you don't want to have major screw ups in a war. Nonetheless, it ain't great. But nobody that I follow who's a defense expert is looking at this and going, oh my God, because they're frankly looking at what's happening, like I said, further down north of Mariupol, and the Ukrainians so far are doing a good job. Let me just see here. I want to make sure. Oop. Hang on a sec. All right, I'm going to look at this quickly here. Oh, funny. Okay. Yes. Later. Later. So I had a text message from somebody. I thought it was relevant to this stuff. I'm just looking here really quick. All right. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to talk about, actually, let me tell you really quick too. So a second dam. So there's stories that the Russians appear to have blown at least a second dam, one other dam in Ukraine. It is the Novodarivka Dam. Oh, thank you, Courtney, for that. Or I should not the Novodarivka Dam, but it's the dam near Novodarivka. And that is, I was looking here, west of Donetsk. Yeah, that appears to be more or less around here by my finger. Okay. And this was because this is the main area where the Ukrainians have been coming down towards Mariupol. It was intended to slow down the Ukrainian troops. Fortunately, it did nothing like the damage that the other dam did. So it was a very minor thing. But what's interesting is, it's like Russia showing its hand, saying last week, we would never blow up a dam. Who would do that? Only criminals would blow up a dam, right? We wouldn't do it. And then a couple of days later, Russia blows up a dam. It's like, dude, right? Kind of giving away the hand. Let me tell you really quick, we're already halfway into the show. I've got a way you guys can support my work, which I would very much appreciate, in addition to the very cool gifts that I appreciate and the wonderful super chat questions and super stickers. But I've set up a website very much like Patreon, if you know that. We try not to use Patreon anymore because they're evil, basically. Patreon has been going after a lot of creators helping Ukraine, including me. So we're trying really, I use them for people who are there, but I'm trying not to promote them too much. What we are using is a place called Kofi.com. It's ko-fi.com. You guys have the link at the bottom of the screen there. For you guys, It's you can find it in my profile, actually, the link in my profile. Thank you, Timothy, for the beach. Oh, that's cool. The link in my profile, Linktree, click it. Second thing, actually, the first thing is probably our fundraiser, which we're still doing to help the Ukrainians with the floods. Thank you, Moses. But the second thing is Kofi, and do go check it out. Thank you, Callum. Do go check it out because it's a way of basically contributing to my work with either a one-time donation or an ongoing donation. And I'm sorry, my nose is itching now. One time is great. It accepts a lot of different things, Apple Pay and lots of different things. Thank you, Jetta. But the ongoing I appreciate as well, because basically, as I said, for the kind of work I'm doing, thank you, Cal. I figures you would get that. For the kind of work I'm doing, sorry. And Chad has a very generous gift from Chad on TikTok. Thank you, Chad. It's nice to know how much money's coming in because basically when you do this kind of work, like I said, my allergies are going off. I apologize, guys. When you do this kind of work, you're literally living day to day because my income is you guys. So you don't really know how much is coming in. And every day I've got to do these pitches, which frankly, I don't like to do these pitches because I hate asking for money. It's something I've never enjoyed in a work environment is sort of, salaries and money and stuff. Nonetheless, because I do it full time, I've got to ask you guys for money. And if one way of sort of alleviating that is Kofi.com, which allows you to give every month, just like Patreon. So basically you set it up, reoccurring donation, and you forget it until you want to turn it off, and then you can turn it off whenever you want quite easily. But it helps me sort of have a set amount of money each month, which makes things easier. So go check it out. It's Kofi.com. It's ko-fi.com/Aravosis. And I would appreciate if you could help me out. And again, I'll talk about this later about our Discord, but if you become a monthly subscriber on Ko-fi, the automatic monthly subscriber, it makes you a VIP on our Discord, which gives you access to one of our private auctions, my weekend show that I do just for paying subscribers, which also actually applies to TikTok subscribers. You guys get the weekend show and stuff like that. So thanks, guys. I appreciate that. So my nose is going to itch. I swear to God, I'm allergic to this show. My allergies don't kick in. They never kick in until I'm mid-show. And then I'm sitting here with my eyes and my nose. It's the most ridiculous thing, so that I never think of it before the show until I'm halfway through the show going, oh God, don't rub your nose on the show. All right, a little more tea. Interesting story today. It's funny. I was thinking about this the other day and I then saw, thank you, Callum. I was thinking about this the other day and then I saw somebody, thank you, Achilles. I saw somebody online talking about it and then saw a bigger discussion today actually today's discussion was on Institute for the Study of War, which is the really good defense think tank. Last night's review they did about the war talked about the flood in Kherson that we believe Russia did, right? So it's the flood that's over here. And remember the town of Kherson, the dam was here. So the flood was basically here. And the idea is that the Russians did it in order to stop the Ukrainians from crossing the river here, right? Because basically bigger floodwaters means harder to cross the river. It takes longer, and the longer you're on the river, the more obvious you are, and the easier it is to blow you up, basically. So it stops the Ukrainians from attacking here and lets the Russians focus more here, which is what they're doing, by the way. They're moving troops over here. So they're moving some of their best troops from around Kherson over to these regions, even all the way to Bakhmut, but basically these regions all over here. Well, some of the thinking now, thank you, Jeff, is that this could end up benefiting Ukraine anyway over time. Within a week or two, the floodwaters will have receded. We still have to see how long it takes the ground to dry, because if the ground doesn't dry, it's harder to attack. I mean, basically, remember how we were waiting for the counteroffensive for forever? The reason we were waiting in large part was, one, because we're waiting for weapons to arrive from the West, but also the Ukrainians were waiting for the ground to firm up. Thank you, Tugas, for the ground to firm up, because you want, thank you, Pam Pam, tanks and things cannot travel well on wet ground. I mean, they're going to get stuck. So if the ground is wet and sloshy and muddy and whatever, they end up going on the roads. And if they're on the roads, it's way too obvious. And again, they get blown up. So the first problem is, if the ground stays wet, it's going to slow down the counteroffensive in that area around Kherson. But if the ground dries out, what happens? Well, if the ground dries out, you now have a large area of Kherson that no longer has working Russian defenses, because that flood, it flooded a lot of Russian troops. It flooded a lot of the landmines and the sea mines. The sea mines, first of all, I was looking at a picture today that was amazing. The Russians had planted mines along the beach here, right? Because you could see the river. This is the river before, before it flooded. The Russians had put a bunch of mines there, and they put them basically. I guess this is. I mean, I'm not a mine expert, but it's a round mine, and then has a pole sticking out the top, and the pole looked like it's 3 or 4 feet tall, like a meter or something, right? Thank you, Pilar. And I'm sure it's for boats or people walking to touch it and it blows up, right? Thank you, Courtney. Well, the water receded so much that now you just see a bunch of these mines in a row on the beach. Well, that means the Ukrainians can blow those mines up, right? They don't have to worry about those mines. Also, the fact that all of the area got just wiped out. A lot of the land defenses could very easily have been just washed away. Well, that makes it so that this area potentially is going to offer up at least less resistance to the Ukrainians if and when they decide to attacking from the north, crossing the river. Now, the final reason, as I said, is because a lot of the best troops, Russia's moving from here, and they're moving them over. I tightened this, it's getting loose again. Moving from here and moving it to all of the battles at Bakhmut and this stuff over here. Well, if these guys are all fighting over here, they're not waiting here for Ukrainian offensive. So a lot of ifs there, we'll see, but that would be nice to see in a few weeks. If now, mind you, actually, final point here, in terms of then why would Russia blow it up? The thinking from the last few days, because of an intercepted phone call of a Russian soldier talking to somebody else, was that the Russian soldier said it was a Russian sabotage group that blew up the mine, but they screwed up. They were hoping to put explosives and have like a small explosion. They wanted to cause some damage to freak out the Ukrainians. But of course, Russian troops being Russian troops, they screwed up and they blew this is at least according to the phone call. They screwed up and they blew the entire thing so that the whole mine wiped everything out. So in other words, the intent of the Russians wouldn't have been to necessarily attack and blow everything out and harm their own men, drown their own defenses. That wasn't the intent, but they did it because they screwed up. So in other words, the fact that they screwed up and they wiped out all of their own defenses isn't proof that the Russians didn't do it, is my point. Oh, this is an interesting story too. So this I think came from a number of the families, I think on Telegram, on social media, a number of the families of troops that are fighting for the so-called, because it's not real, the so-called Donetsk People's Republic. The Donetsk People's Republic. So Donetsk and Luhansk are the two Ukrainian provinces out here in the east, okay? Here's Donetsk, here's Luhansk. The Russians invaded 2014 and set up these fake independent governments, right? The Donetsk People's Republic, right? It sounds like, something out of the Soviet Union. Fake government, fake leadership, declared them independent and all this kind of crap, right? And now the Russians claim that it's part of Russia. Total BS. Well, they had their own soldiers, right? Whether it was collaborators or whoever, but they were able to, or they got their own soldiers. And reports from the families are that the men fighting for this group, so the Ukrainian collaborators fighting with Russia in this republic, the wounded soldiers are virtual prisoners in basements with little to no food, inadequate medical treatment, and no contact with the outside world. This is coming from multiple family members. Some of them are even being sent back to the front on crutches, which is great because this is part of that whole issue of relations between different groups in the Russian military. In this case, it's the Russian military versus their Ukrainian collaborator allies. The other story that's going on, which is really interesting, is with Prigozhin again. This was going to be my next story. The Russian Defense Minister Shoigu announced June 10th, so it would be about 2 days ago, that all volunteer formations, and what he means by that is the Wagner mercenary group, basically people who are fighting because they volunteered and they're with a volunteer army, right? Thank you, Laurie. I mean, volunteer, they're being paid, of course, they're mercenaries. This is the group that did most of the fighting in Bakhmut in eastern Ukraine, run by Prigozhin, a billionaire who was close friends with Putin. Now it's not clear what's going on because he always seems to be attacking the Ministry of Defense. Well, the Russians reportedly, in order for Putin to get better control of Prigozhin's men, they told them that the order from the Pentagon, the order from the Russian Ministry of Defense was they're going to require everybody to sign military contracts with the Russian Ministry of Defense. In other words, even if you're working for Prigozhin, you're no longer signing a contract with him, or maybe you still are, but now you've got to sign one with the Secretary of Defense, with the Minister of Defense. The idea is to basically take Prigozhin's men and move them under more strict control of the ministry. Well, Prigozhin got pissed because he knew this was an effort to basically undermine him. Thank you, Red Watts. And he came out and said, I'm telling my men not to sign. It's wonderful because once again, we've got Russian troops who are fighting side by side who hate each other and who think that they're all trying to get each other. Prigozhin, you'll remember last week, he said, and he may have been telling the truth, that his men, that the Russian troops set a minefield for his men when they were pulling out of Bakhmut. And when they made their ways around the mines, the Russian troops then opened fire on the mercenary Russian. So the regular Russian troops opened fire on the mercenary Russian troops, so that then Prigozhin's men took the leader of the Russian military troops hostage, made him do a confession video, tortured him. I mean, it's a disaster. It is a wonderful, wonderful disaster. And the military folks watching, or the former military, can tell you better than I, but you will always hear military people talk about unit morale and cohesion. And basically, it's how well you fight as a joint force, right? You're not, it's all those commercials we see on TV of, I forget what it was, the old commercials about, basically you're not one man, you're a team and this kind of stuff. But it's really true in the military. These guys have got to work, your lives are on the line. You've got to work together. You've got a lot of different specialties working together. And it doesn't work well when you hate the guy next to you because you think he just tried to bomb you with a minefield and then shoot you when the mine didn't get you. That does not make for working together well next time. It actually makes you probably want to kill him next time. Raytheon Technologies, the manufacturer of the Patriot air missile systems. The Patriots are the really good air defense systems that we finally gave Ukraine. We gave them 2 of the systems, a lot of rockets for them, but 2 of the systems, a lot of missiles. Says that they're increasing production and they promised 5 more systems for Ukraine. The problem is the systems will not be provided until the end of 2024. It takes that long to make them. That ain't great. Anyway, that's all I've got on that. F-16s, Dutch Defense Minister, boy, we're just going to stick with the name. Dutch Defense Minister told Reuters today that the Netherlands and other allies were hoping to start F-16 fighter training for Ukrainian pilots this summer. So, okay, that hasn't started yet. It's starting, but not yet. More than 250 aircraft. Oh, big NATO, huge, actually, NATO air exercise going on now. The biggest, I believe, air exercise ever by NATO troops. More than 250 aircraft and 10,000 personnel began a 2-week military exercise on Monday involving, this is from Sky News, involving NATO nations and Japan. Interesting that it involves Japan, in what host nation Germany bills as the largest deployment of aircraft in the alliance's history. Interestingly, planning began in 2018. So ironically, this wasn't planned to be during the war, right? To sort of show Russia, ha ha ha, look what we can do. But the timing worked out perfectly. Now, let me show you, I've got a couple more stories and then we're done. I'm going to show you a couple other things. One of the things I was telling you earlier with Kofi.com, which is the way you guys can support me. Again, links at the bottom of the screen for you guys. Link is in my profile, or just go to Aravosis.com if you guys want on TikTok. Either Aravosis.com or the Linktree link in my profile on TikTok. You click that and all my list of links come up. Top one is fundraising we're still doing for the flood victims. I think right now it's the fundraiser for the animals. Thank you, Tom. So anything you give right now will be for the pets. We actually did raise, I didn't even tell you, we did raise $1,400, a little over $1,400 for the animal rescue, for the pet rescue in the Kherson flood. Helped at least 3 different pet rescue organizations. I believe a 4th. Vlad is handling it, but I believe he may have given me a 4th as well. But thank you guys for that. We got $1,400, which is around the same in euros. But I know a lot of you, like me, very partial to pets. So I wanted you to know we are helping them too, but we also raised money for the humans as well. Somebody did ask on TikTok, are you going to help the people? I was like, we raise money for the people, then we help the animals. Thank you, LWD. But when you subscribe through Ko-fi, which again, you guys can find the link there, ko-fi.com/Aravosis. If you give a monthly contribution, you become a VIP member of my Discord community. That's discord.aravosis.com. Again, you can find it via my links, aravosis.com, or in my profile on TikTok. And that means you get access to my weekend show. I do a weekend get together most Saturday mornings. Thank you, Misty. 11 a.m. Eastern time. That's Washington, D.C., New York City time. 11 a.m. just for the TikTok folks, TikTok subscribers, and for all the other subscribers, we go to Discord. So that would be the Discord subscribers, Ko-fi, anybody still on Patreon, etc. Twitch, by the way, as well. I also have a Twitch show. So the Twitch subscribers would be on my Aravosis account on Twitch. But in any case, the auction is pretty cool. Who was that? Sorry, real quick. Beep. Thank you, Jetta. The auction's really cool because I get a lot of cool stuff from Ukraine. I buy and then auction it to you guys. And it's to support my work because I do this full time. And again, nobody pays me. I mean, you guys pay me, but literally I do this full time. My salary is from you guys. And so far it's been working, knock on wood. So, which is good. But I take half the proceeds for myself and half the proceeds we channel back into Ukraine because I wanted to, I wanted to basically still help the country. We've probably given over $10,000, maybe $11,000 now in money back to Ukraine, just from the auctions, mind you. I mean, otherwise we've raised like 100,000. Chad, what did you do? Sorry, I can see Chad's going to have a huge series of gifts here. Oh God, cool dinosaur. I'm a dinosaur fan. The sheep. I don't sleep well, so that's good. And crazy dog with balloons. Oh, like the movie. Thank you, Chad. That was I know that was very generous of you because that was you can get 3 gifts in one. So thank you for that. Yes. So anyway, we've got the auction. Money goes back to Ukraine. We also support my work. We've got a lot of cool stuff. I'm only going to show you a couple things, but this week's auction, the Patron stickers, which is really neat. It's the mind sniffing dog that the Ukrainians, very popular in Ukraine. And these are some stickers devoted to him based on the Ukrainian stamps. Got a very cool Russian pack that it's a sort of a little nap pack. It's a little pack, basically. It's hard to describe, with the 2 little things that go on the uniform that Ukrainian troops got in Ukraine. And they sent it to us under the proviso that we auction it off. And their share of the proceeds, instead of just using it for Ukraine benefit overall, we send that share back to them and they use it for their specific unit. And we've been doing a couple different items. That's one of them. Very cool. And let me see. One more, maybe 1 or 2 more. Actually, this one I like a lot. It's stupid, but I love it. It's a fridge magnet. It's a fridge magnet. It's on the back of a bottle opener as well of the tractor pulling the tank, which is again a famous Ukrainian stamp. And based on all those videos early in the war of the Ukrainian tractors basically taking the Russian tanks. But I love that. I just think it's really cool. And a couple different things. I've got a sweatshirt devoted to Ukrainian Special Forces. And we do have one of these t-shirts. I totally forgot we had the t-shirt. And a t-shirt, a Russian warship go F yourself t-shirt. These are really good. This one I think is a size XL. I want to check. Yes. No. Oh, this one's a large. Oh, this one's a large. Oh, that's nice. Okay. This one's a large, I believe. Yes, it's a large. So, but these ones are neat because these are based on the stamp that's the soldier flipping off the warship, the Moskva. This is the ship that the Ukrainians said, Russian warship, go F yourself. And then they sank it, which was kind of amazing. So anyway, all right, back to the news. The way you get access to all of those, half of the auctions are free in my Discord. Just join the Discord. It's free. Discord.aravosis.com. Again, links in my profile. You guys have the link at the bottom at aravosis.com. But I also have a separate auction that's the VIP auction. That's for the people who do the monthly contributions. And I typically put the best stuff there first. The new stuff goes to the VIP auction first, and you're competing against much fewer because the Discord's got over 2,000 people. The paid subscribers, you are glorious people, but you are fewer than 2,000. So you're competing against fewer people, so it gives you more of an edge. All right, a few more stories here. An American musician, Michael Travis Leak, was arrested on drug charges in Moscow. He's been living in Moscow for a while now. Thank you, Phil. I did see that when you put it up, Phil. I was in the middle of my spiel, so I didn't stop, but thank you for that. I appreciate it. He's been living in Moscow, I think, for about 5 years now as a musician with his own rock band. And I got to tell you, I don't want to sound insensitive, but dude, you're an American citizen who decided to stay in Moscow after they'd captured, well, they already had American hostages before, but after they took Brittany Griner and they took the Wall Street Journal reporter, Evan, is it Gershkovich, I believe is his last name, and you still decided to stay, and what a surprise, they took you hostage. I'm sorry. The State Department should help him if they can help him, but there is zero of anything traded to get that guy free. Zero is traded to get him free. He assumed the risk. It's not cruel at all. I was going to say it's cruel. It's not cruel at all. He assumed the risk. He knew how dangerous it was, and for some stupid reason, he decided to stay in Moscow. Yeah, it's his job. Yeah, it's his band. Well, you know what? Now it's your life. I zero sympathy. So help me God, we better not trade one Russian spy for that guy. But you know he is. They're going to include him in whatever spy exchange, and now we've got to give up another Russian spy for this doofus. Oreo and Toblerone. I had no idea about this. The parent company of Oreo and Toblerone has refused to stop operating in Russia. I had no idea. The company is called Mondelez International, or Mondelez, Mondelez. And they're facing a widening boycott in the Nordic region over its continued presence in Russia. The company's starting to freak out. The Nordic countries have been very good about this. They were the ones who also went really crazy on, was it Absolute, I believe, that was still operating in Russia and actually started up again, and then they closed down. The Oreo guys, apparently, and Toblerone, both, mind you, thank you, Paigey. The Toblerone guys basically claimed that it's only a small amount. Like, we're only doing a small amount of operations. And they always say to help our Russian partners, like the Russians working for them. Well, first of all, thank you. Who was that? Oh, thank you. Was that Chad? Nope, hang on. Thank you, Chad. I thought that was you. First of all, I'm not sure I want to help your Russian partners anymore. Right? A lot of Russians support this crazy war. That's the first thing. Second of all, give me a break. Support your Russian partners. How about you support all your Ukrainian partners who are being killed and wiped out? All the Ukrainian children. Just anyway, this is. I'm actually a little surprised that the story didn't break earlier. I mean, literally, I'm only hearing about it now. Now, I will admit, I don't buy Oreos because they're so fattening. I love Oreos. I mean, I adore Oreos. Like, the rare times I've had Oreos, like, I'll just, even though it's like pure sugar, they're in America. For anybody who's European, I don't know if you guys know what Oreos are, but they're like the white stuff in the middle with the dark black cookie on the outside. We brought some Oreo. My friend Marion and I don't know if she's on today. You see my friend Marion H, who comes on occasionally on YouTube. Marion and I went with a group on an Alaskan business trip, a business delegation to the Russian Far East in 1993, I believe it was. And Russia had just opened up because the Soviet Union had just crumbled 2 years before. We were the first, or we were the most senior delegation. I was actually the most senior American official, I was told, the Russians told me, to visit that town since the revolution, so since 1917. And among things I brought Oreos. I think maybe Marion told me bring Oreos, but we brought Oreos because we knew they were going to take us to tour a school, right? A high school. Thank you, JWD. Or it wasn't even just a high school. It was a high school in lower grades. So we brought Oreos and we taught them in class because the teachers wanted us to talk to the class, which was really cool. So Marion is super fluent in Russian because she's an international lawyer, an international Russian lawyer, American, but does contracts in Russian. Like, reads the Russian Constitution and negotiates. I mean, my French is my best foreign language. I can't do that in French. Scary knowledge of Russian. So Marion is up there being my translator as I'm explaining Oreos, and we're showing them Oreos and teaching them how to eat them. Because Oreos, the way kids eat them, you pull it apart, the white in the middle, and then you scrape the white on your teeth, eat the white, and then eat the cookie. And we're teaching these kids, and I've got pictures of these kids eating the Oreo. It was the cutest. They had a good time. Thank you, B. Smith. But we asked them, they did like them. I mean, they're pure sugar, but you're a kid, you know. Actually, even as an adult, I, as an adult, I'd have to try them again and see if I liked them. Anyway, it was reminded me of Oreos. But you know, that's the goodwill you're killing, Oreos. Just so you know, maybe Marion and I started the Oreo craze in Russia. Who knows? Last story. Okay, last story is a good story. New York Times: a Ukrainian man who fled. Oops, sorry, real quick. Another cool gift here. Oh, that's a new one. Thank you. That's a new little postcard gift. Thank you, Timothy. Yeah, I've not seen that one before. Thanks for that. A Ukrainian man, this is from the New York Times, who fled the Russian invasion last year, won a €500,000 or $500,000, it's around the same, from a €5 scratch off lottery ticket in Belgium. So it's a €5 ticket, a $5 ticket, and he won $500,000, €500,000. He's a Ukrainian refugee from Ukraine. Thank you, Chad. He was reportedly delighted with his win. He said he was a little embarrassed, or because his thoughts are obviously back home. You know what I mean? Like he's not celebrating, but he was delighted with his win, quote, as if it were a sign of hope in a dark time, which I thought was very sweet. But imagine, I mean, they had to flee the country with his family, and he buys a lot. I mean, it's like you could, if you wrote this for Hollywood, they'd be like, okay, that's just, no one's going to believe that. He's a refugee. And you can see the guy too, like, I'm going to buy a lottery ticket. Who knows? And he wins $500,000. I mean, that's amazing. And now he's going to find out what European taxes look like. Although actually, maybe they're the same in Ukraine. I don't know. That was a joke. Just kidding. All right, guys. So yeah, let's jump into the Q&A. All right. The way it works, as you guys know, you can submit questions on TikTok. You can do it on the screen, but on the screen they fly by. That's the only reason I say to try to use the link. Thank you, Mark. In the profile, look for the Q&A link in my profile on TikTok and use that because it queues them up, which is less of a chance of me missing it. For you guys, you can always use the comment box, obviously. Thank you, Adventure. You can use the comment box of the various things. And of course, very much happy for you to still use super chat questions to help me out. Please do keep the gifts coming, folks. Why don't I start with the TikTok? A TikTok question. Oh, thank you, Christine. Christine bought a subscription. Thank you for that. That was sweet of you. Thank you. TikTok. I did see that. So sorry, but Otanbot was mentioning that Biden was meeting tomorrow with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. And I don't know whether Otanbot's saying, could it be they're looking at another term? Now, Jens Stoltenberg, who's it's the Secretary General of NATO. I don't quite understand what the Secretary General of NATO actually does because he's not the top general. The top general is always an American. But it seems to be sort of a political role, right? Sort of, my guess is there's also probably a NATO organization that he kind of runs, almost like the United Nations, probably, although not that you guys know how that works, but there's like a core organization at the center. He already had his term extended once. They were talking about getting somebody new. The Europeans were demanding it be somebody from the continent and not a Brit, because they were talking about the British defense minister, defense secretary, Ben, what's his face? I'm already forgetting his name, and I shouldn't. But I don't know that they would repeat it with him again. I don't know whether that's the case. Thank you, Dom. But I did see that was happening. Yeah. Hang on a sec. This is from Nick. If Russia or Ukraine wins the war, do you think China will be the West NATO's biggest threat? Sure. In some ways. I mean, Ben Wallace, thank you. I knew his last name and it like went out of my mind as I was talking to you guys. The biggest threats, Russia, international terrorism, although, however you want to define that. China is the biggest long-term threat, but also near-term or medium-term as well, if you consider that we're afraid that China might invade Taiwan in the next 4 years, right? So that's not long-term, really. And you've got the threat of nuclear proliferation specifically. Well, you've got North Korea is always a threat, but you've got Iran developing nukes. Iran develops nukes. I don't know what happens. I don't know how Israel can accept Iran developing nukes. And Israel has nukes. I mean, years ago, Israel had around 100 nukes. I have no idea. I mean, at least widely assumed. I mean, who knows? I've never seen anything classified about Israel's nukes, so I get this from the public. But widely assumed over 100 nukes years ago. Israel cannot accept Iran getting nuclear weapons because Iran could very well nuke Israel. Would Israel nuke Iran to stop them from getting nukes? I mean, it's a really weird, anyway, and they can attack. But I remember 20 years ago reading about the attack plans, and they were saying that, attacking Iran was going to be very difficult to hit all the nuclear facilities because they were buried so deep, like in mountains and things like that. Then again, maybe we've got different weapons today, bunker busters. I don't know, but the Iran thing is huge. But so there is still other stuff on the horizon, but China is there anyway. And China, a war in Taiwan is a big, not to mention a war in Taiwan is a big deal because China's nuclear and we're nuclear. So that's a concern there too. A big concern there. Thank you, Hazel. Hazel wants to see the map. There's the map. People were dissing my map today. Don't diss the map. This map has become like a mascot of the show. It's a t-shirt that I turned into a map at the beginning of the show. And by the way, it's a great map. I mean, it's a really good map of Ukraine, like really good map of Ukraine. So I kind of love this map now. Anyway, oh boy. When's the last time China attacked another country? I've got one for you. When's the last time China attacked its own people? Yesterday? Yeah, give me a break. When's the last time China attacked another country? A totalitarian communist dictatorship. Don't even start defending China, please. All right. Thanks for that, Hazel. That was nice of you. Let's pull more questions, kids. Throw the questions on TikTok. Throw the questions over there for you guys. How's the counteroffensive going? Good so far. There was some bad stuff. Talked about the beginning of the show, but we can summarize again because people do care. There was some bad stuff at the very beginning with, Syndicate's putting some interesting stuff up there. Bad stuff at the very beginning with Ukraine losing a number of Leopard tanks. Those are the German tanks and the Bradley fighting vehicles that the Americans provided, right? So that was bad. Since then, Ukraine has done very well, which is good. They've in the last couple of days, especially, been making a lot of progress coming down here, heading towards Mariupol. Mariupol's here. Mariupol, one of the key cities. Mariupol, more of a, still an important city, actually, but also an embarrassing city because Putin really wanted Mariupol. So losing Mariupol, it's, akin in some ways to losing Bakhmut, another city that for whatever reason, the Russians wanted to make a big show of the fact that they control that city. So losing Mariupol, big problem for Putin. And if they lose Mariupol, it means Ukraine has now done this, which cuts the Russian occupation in half, right? Russia occupies all of this. So if Ukraine can do this, they've cut the occupation in half, and that causes a lot of strategic problems for Russia and sets Ukraine up in a good position to then attack, right, and start taking the rest back. Your question. So in any case, the last few days, Ukraine has taken back 7 different villages just for that area going down to Mariupol. People are very happy about that. That's great. They're doing well around Bakhmut. Bakhmut is the city over here. That's the town I told you the Russians spent 11 months trying to get. Probably 100,000 casualties, which would be dead and injured combined, for a town that just doesn't really matter strategically. But the Bakhmut, the Ukrainians are coming in from the north and the south suburbs and slowly taking more land back, which is good. But the one caveat is it's still early. It's not really. It's great that this is great that the Ukrainians are doing, and the Russians are also but the chatter you hear on Russian social media channels by the Russian military bloggers, who are these private citizens, often former military, who are kind of at least embedded or near the Russian military. So they actually see what's going on, and they often make the mistake of telling the truth. They're very worried about how Ukraine is doing a little too well in its approach to Mariupol. The hard thing becomes with Mariupol, Ukraine still hasn't hit Russia's major defenses, like the big defense lines with all the multiple, dragon's teeth and trenches and all these different things they've got, right? So that it's premature to say, oh, they're on a roll, they're going to get this, right? But you know what? they could be losing these cities too, and they're not. They're winning them. So Ukraine's doing very well at this point. Had a bad glitch at the beginning with losing those vehicles, which was not good, but they've been doing very well with the counteroffensive in the last several days. But, we'll see. The strikers as well. I read that there may be Bradleys and strikers that Biden is announcing tomorrow, possibly, but we don't know for sure in terms of new fighting vehicles. Thank you, Paigey, for the gift there. But we're not going to, I shouldn't say we're not going to know. It may already have popped out in the news already. I just didn't see anything before the show started saying exactly what they were going to give. I just saw a rumor saying that we might be giving the Bradleys and strikers as well were in there. I remember seeing that. Actually, this is a very good question from Cowboy. This is something I've wondered, Cowboy, and I don't have an answer to it. Cowboy's asking, why would that's an excellent question. And I'm curious, so since we get a lot of military folks on the show, if any of you, Syndicate, I'm going to take this off, can maybe chime in. Cowboy's saying, okay, I get the idea of cutting the Russians off from each other because, for example, if you cut this, you've now cut off the supply lines coming here, going here, right? And you've isolated these guys. Okay. But if the Ukrainians come here, first of all, doesn't that then put Russians on both sides of you, right? That's the dog coming in. Doesn't that put Russians on both sides of you, which means you're potentially surrounded, or not surrounded, but at least surrounded on two sides. But also, if you then move here, up and down, isn't that splitting your forces? What I was wondering about that as well. I was wondering more about basically now you've got Russians on two sides of you. Is that not more dangerous? But also even the splitting forces. Although there's an argument, Cowboy, that Ukraine's got to get its land back anyway. So at some point, Ukraine wants its forces spread all over here. So they've got to start somewhere. But I guess what you're saying is, wouldn't it make more sense? Let's pretend strategically this makes sense. Wouldn't it make more sense to start here and come down so that you're only fighting Russia on one front rather than two fronts? Or if you could start here, now they can't because of the flood, come across the river and start like this so that at least Russia's not to your back. Anyway, it's a good question. I don't know if any of the that's a good point. That G says it's about higher ground and the quality of landing where they were attacking. One of the big issues is the height of the ground because you want the higher ground for attacking. My dog is enjoying of course you are, with a big, she likes to go out and enjoy the balcony, and she always goes out and tries to eat my plants or stuff. So she comes in with a big leaf hanging from her face, of course. Big surprise. So let me see what folks were saying here. Focused power, hard to defend against. Okay, that was too few words. Oh, that's interesting. Malayathos says June 17th is the next new moon. That's in 5 days. Now that's very interesting. Okay, that's very interesting. We've talked about this before, that a lot of military folks, strategists, like to do big operations when there's a new moon, when basically, the moon is at there's no moon or the moon's at its smallest because it's really dark. Okay. In Ukraine's case, darkness especially helpful because a lot of the new vehicles, I don't know if it's just the Bradleys. I'm assuming the Leopards are the same. The new vehicles they've got from the West are very good. They've got great thermal imaging for seeing things at night. The Russians do not have this. One thing I saw, and again, I don't remember whether it was the tank or the fighting vehicle, but one thing I saw was talking about how, for example, the Ukrainians, look at it this way, okay? The Russians can see this far. The Ukrainians can see this far. This is not to scale, so to speak, comparatively, but the point is Ukrainians can see here a lot farther than the Russians. Well, at some point, this is a Russian tank, this is a Ukrainian, right? At some point, they go like this, and the Ukrainians can see the Russian. The Russians cannot see the Ukrainian. So in other words, the Ukrainians can see a lot farther than the Russians can. So the Ukrainians start to get close at night and they can just blow the Russians up, and the Russians can't see a damn thing. So that's interesting because we were talking ourselves a couple weeks ago about, was the counteroffensive going to wait for the new moon? The new moon's in 5 days. We keep hearing this talk now that Brit saying expect a big attack later this week. We keep hearing people say this is the counteroffensive, but it's not the big counteroffensive. Anyway, just something to keep in mind. Just something to keep in mind. Yes, Ukrainians have bigger fingers, magical. That is exactly what I'm saying. Hold on. So Otan Bot is kind of weighing in on some of our, real quick. Actually, Wilson, you know what? I'm going to save Otan so I don't lose it. And we'll do Wilson. Sasha, you got to wait. You've got to wait. My dog's begging for water. You can wait a little. At this rate, when would we expect Ukraine to hit the major Russian defenses in the push to Mariupol? I don't know. I was wondering about that. I mean, at the pace they're going, oh God, okay, 1 second. I'm getting the dog is doing the hitting the bowl thing. Excuse me, guys. The dog takes precedence. All right, crazy dog. I heard you. All right. Okay, there you go. Oh my God. Sorry, the dog, when she wants water and she's out, she starts hitting the bowl, but they learn to hit the bowl. So her paws was in the bowl and she was already starting this like fake dog paddle. And then when they get pissed, when you don't come, then they go, and the bowl starts flying around. So sorry. I was wondering about that. I don't know, like at the current rate they're going, how long would it take for them to hit Mariupol? Now, part of the problem is you can't predict the current rate because they haven't hit the main defenses yet. Right? I don't have the map, and I don't think I've got the map in front of me. Sure, some people did some nice ones today. Hang on, let me see. I don't think I've got it here. I don't think I copied it. No. Shoot. There was a nice map that I'm gonna look on Twitter anyway, really quick. Because I don't know whether I liked it or not. It was like, it's a Twitter term for me, sort of saving it. I doubt I have it. I'm just going to look here really quick. But it was nice because it showed you what was coming in terms of the Russian defenses. And it was really helpful because you were kind of like, oh, okay, just looking at the map. Well, actually, yeah. I think this probably is the most recent. Yes. Okay. Hang on a second here. Okay. I think this is probably a correct representation. There's Mariupol on the bottom, right? You see the red is Russia, the blue line's Ukraine. Those solid red lines I'll show you guys in a second, are the Russian defenses. And you can see where they haven't gotten to the Russian defensive line yet, right? So that's the issue. Here you go again. So Ukraine in principle is the blue on top. I think this is hopefully it's the most recent map because it's recently posted. But those really solid Mariupol at the bottom, those really solid red lines are the scary Russian defenses with, dragon's teeth, these big things sticking out of the ground, trenches, etc. They haven't hit those yet. Hitting those is going to take time. It's going to take a lot of energy. I mean, a lot of manpower. It could injure and kill a lot of soldiers. It could injure and destroy a lot of weapons, tanks and things. So who knows how long that's going to take? So I don't know if they can predict. I just don't know. If anybody else can, but I don't know. Otobot was saying penetration or envelopment in warfare involves splitting an enemy's defense line. Benefits include isolating enemy forces, causing confusion, and potentially enabling encirclement. This strategy can also offer greater maneuverability and have a demoralizing effect on the enemy. Okay, so basically, you get more benefit out of cutting them in two than risk of now you've got them on both sides of you. Okay, thank you for that. This is interesting. Mike is saying, in terms of timelines and thing, the Allies spent 7 to 8 weeks, 10 kilometers off of Omaha Beach. 10 kilometers would be like 6 miles. So they landed at, this is D-Day in Normandy, right? So World War II, they land on the beaches of Normandy, France. They move 6 miles or 10 kilometers, and then they're stuck for 2 months. Bogged down only to wear the enemy down and eventually break out and rout the Germans, so don't panic. So there you go. So the point is, well, I mean, that's actually a perfect illustration, right? However quickly they were able to advance 10 miles or 6 miles, I should say, and then they got stuck. Not stuck, but stuck where now you're fighting each other and you're basically seeing who wears whom down first, right? And the person who doesn't get worn down is the one that can then keep moving. But you don't know. Again, it's scary stuff that's coming, but you knock on wood, the Ukrainians have still done really well in the last few days, which is great. Sorry, looking here. I try to look at some of your guys' questions. Okay, you guys are all arguing with yourselves here. By dividing the defense line, it can open opportunities to encircle the enemy's forces, which can put them in an even more disadvantageous position. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I see what you mean. So what Otambat is saying too is, let's pretend that Ukraine's able to get all the way down to Mariupol, and now it's got this or even this, right? Well, now you've got Ukraine's forces here, but you've got Ukraine's forces here and here as well, right? Well, maybe it's more like this, and this. Well, now areas here have got Ukraine up here and Ukraine down here. They can sweep up, and all of a sudden they're like, they come around here and they come around here, and now they've encircled all the Russian forces there. So it gives you more of an opportunity to potentially encircle them. And then when they're encircled, then they're dead, because then they're not getting food, they're not getting water, they're not getting fuel, they're not getting ammunition. It's frankly what happened to the Ukrainian soldiers fighting at the Azovstal steel plant. They fought for almost 2 months, but then they were trapped inside. They couldn't get food and water, and they couldn't get more ammunition, so they started running out of ammunition at the end. Thank you, Tom. And once you start running out of ammunition, that's when Zelensky said, okay, I'm ordering you to surrender, so at least we can save your lives, because there's no point in just dying. But that's what Otambat is saying is the benefit of splitting the forces. It then potentially gives you the opportunity to start enveloping them, and then they're really in real trouble. Thank you, Tom, for that. A few more questions, guys, and then we can wrap it up. 7:12, not too bad. That's true too. Yep. Bjorn is saying, if the Ukrainians reach, good point, Bjorn. If the Ukrainians reach the Azov Sea, they can then hit the Kerch Bridge. So what Bjorn is actually, let me see if let me pull it up on my, well, no, you can do it here. So, yeah. I'm trying to look to do this even. Here, let's use my pen to do it. So let's say they get to Mariupol. Well, it depends where, of course. Let's say they get to Mariupol. All right. This distance, here's the Kerch Bridge. There's that bridge that we think the Ukrainians blew up last fall. Very important bridge. Russians use it to resupply and to connect Crimea, this territory they stole in 2014, to the rest of Russia. I'm looking at the distance from Mariupol, for example, to Kerch. Okay, let's take this, turn it this way. Now that's better. It's not that much closer, actually. Mariupol. What gets a lot closer, right? This is Mariupol. Berdyansk starts to get a lot closer. Here gets a lot closer. Look at how much shorter that distance is than the Mariupol distance, right? So as you go further down, you start to get closer and closer to hitting the bridge, so it gets easier. Now, depends what weapons you've got, although frankly, British Storm Shadows could certainly hit it. It depends also what weapons you've got. Well, you'd have to use the Storm Shadows probably. I mean, a weapon that has enough charge to take out the bridge. But yes, once you start to hit that area, and by the way, it's not just you get here and you can hit the bridge. You get here, and now you're able to hit here. Now you're able to hit here. Now you're able to hit along the coast of Crimea. The closer you go south, the more you go south, the more you're able to then hit a larger circle in general. Yeah, good point. Berdyansk, 160 kilometers, what, to Kerch? You are my, I thought Susan's making me laugh. Susan gave a gift and said, just for being you and Sasha. I thought you wrote, just for being your Santa. And I was like, well, you kind of are my Santa, Susan. You've been really generous. And I was going to say, maybe you're Mrs. Claus, or I was going to make a Mrs. Claus joke. That's very funny. Just for being your Santa. I kind of like my way. I think it sounds kind of sweet. Thank you, Susan. So Berdyansk, 160 kilometers from Berdyansk to what? To Kerch Bridge? That's interesting. Now, mind you, part of the issue is going to be who can what missile system has enough of a charge that it actually can blow up the bridge, because some of them can't. Troll person. Sorry, I'm getting rid of a troll person on Facebook. just so you guys know, because this person brought it up again, the Russians have been trying to push some disinformation for, oh my God, like 2 months now. There was a Ukrainian bunker. It was, my favorite part is it was filled with American generals. And you're like, oh, sure. We had a bunch of American generals in a bunker in the, mind you, in the war zone. We didn't like put them in Kyiv. We put them in the war zone, American and NATO generals, and they got blown up and 300 of them got killed. Like, sure. Not to mention, maybe if this was World War I, but hi, it's 2023. Our generals don't have to like get into the bunker to run a war and to communicate. It doesn't quite work that way anymore. I mean, my God, we've got drones. We've got drones that can operate from like the US and bomb people in Afghanistan. I mean, give me a break. But no, I'm sorry. I blocked that person because that did not seem to be, that was a Russian Facebook troll. Because also that lie died like 2 months ago. That was a big lie they were promoting like 2 months ago, 2 or 3 months ago. And it died. And all of a sudden it came back. And I was like, ooh, sorry, your Elvis has left the building. Anyway, beep, 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 beep. Sorry, seeing here. Oh, I'm sure there's lots of flooded bodies. Cliff is asking, heard there are hundreds of bodies found in flooded homes. I'm sure. And animals and horses, there's got to be. I mean, look, you've got here, the city of Kherson itself, I looked, 280,000 people more or less. The province of Kherson, let's see. Hey, Google, set your volume to 30%. Hey, Google, what's the population of Kherson Oblast in Ukraine? You Google. Hey, Google, what's the population of Kherson Oblast in Ukraine? You're an idiot. Well, the iPhone's going to be worst. Population of Kherson Oblast in Ukraine? Oh. Oh. Hey, Google, shut up. The area of the region, the population of the region is 1 million. The town, the capital city or whatever is, I remember the other day, 280,000 people. So you got 1 million people in that region. Now, all of them aren't affected directly. There were 40,000 people in immediate danger earlier in the week from the flood. Okay. So it's 40,000. You had hundreds of thousands who weren't going to get water and everything else. That's a different question. But in terms of dying from the flood, there were 40,000. I'm reading stuff saying, they've confirmed 10 victims. There have got to be a lot more than 10 victims of this flood. It happened at 2:50 at night, and the question becomes, how quickly did the water rise? And well, not just how quickly the water rose, but how much did it rise in various areas? Because the Ukrainian area is higher, the Russian area, occupied area, is lower. The water could take 2 days, but if nobody's coming to get you, you drown. It doesn't really matter how quickly it goes. Very scary. Oops, sorry, checking here. Susan, let me be your Santa. That just makes me chuckle. Exactly. This is when that's right. This is when the AI takes over. when I tell Google to shut up too many times, and then that's it. And then it's the revenge of the Google. Yeah, they're saying 15 people died. A lot more than, now, mind you, part of the problem is, I would say, not most, 2/3 of the area, give or take, that was flooded is in Russian territory. Russian held territory. It's Ukraine, but it's the south of the river is occupied by the Russians. North of the river is free. So the south part, you don't even know who's there, right? I mean, that's a whole problem there. You just don't even know who's hurt or whatever, because they won't let you in. So I would, it's going to be like Katrina. What did they? I don't even remember. Did they find a lot of the victims of Katrina later on? I would imagine. But anyways, oh well. So what else we got, guys? With another question or two, and then we can go. Is it a war crime? Yes, it is actually specifically blowing up dams is per se a war crime. It's actually in the Geneva Conventions, of all things. Dams are listed. You can't blow up dams. So, yeah, it's definitely a war crime. And actually, they said today, I saw something today, the International Criminal Court, I think, is investigating the burst of the dam. They've added it to their list of investigations, which is good. Yeah, okay. Magical, I will look at TikTok questions again. Good idea. Do another couple from TikTok, and then we'll go. Oops. Okay, Joseph had a good question. You're adding to the Q&A. Okay, thank you. Is it possible for the Wagner Group to turn their efforts against Russia as they threatened? I mean, there's possible and there's possible. I mean, they can, right? I mean, they can point their weapons at whoever they want. The question becomes, the Wagner Group, I'm assuming, is mostly Russian nationals. Would Russian nationals turn their arms on fellow Russians? Having said that, they're fellow Russians who just mined your escape from Bakhmut and who opened fire on you, right? So the Wagner people are already sitting there going, the Russian military tried to kill us. I mean, I don't know. Initially, I was saying, are they really going to turn on them? I would suspect it's more likely that they walk, that they just say, forget it, we're out of here. They're volunteers anyway. I mean, I don't know how that works with Russia. The problem is, if your family's in Russia, can you just get up and leave, right? I mean, because they're going to come after your family and it's your home. I mean, you're not going to go home again. It's a very, very confusing thing. But anyway, so yeah, it's a good question, but it's a horribly unstable alliance, but good that it's staying that way and keeps getting worse, which is great. Given Russia's effectiveness levels in Ukraine, why isn't Georgia taking advantage and attacking South Ossetia and Abkhazia to retake them more easily? I don't know. I mean, who knows if the Georgians maybe the Georgians don't think they can do it. I mean, I'm not really the expert on that region, but they're, and maybe they think Russia would nuke them. And maybe they're afraid that in their calculus, the Russians would do it. And frankly, my guess is also maybe the Russians told them and said, you play games, when we're busy doing this, we will nuke you. Knowing Russia, they would have, whether they would nuke them is one question. Whether they would say we'll nuke you as a threat, they're telling us that publicly. Of course, they would tell, Armenia that privately. So I don't remember. We talked about this before, who was paying the Wagner people. I don't remember remember we sort of came across this last week, whether it was the Russian Ministry of Defense or whether they're just getting the money from, for example, all those mineral deals they're doing in Africa and everything else. I don't remember. Okay, one more thing here. Yeah, there's a lot of, I did hear this, Wawa was saying, did you hear about the Nazi soldiers found from the Battle of Dnieper, which is the Dnipro River in 1942? Their skeletons have appeared now that the dam is drained. Yeah, I was seeing, I think I was seeing pictures of it. Pictures I was seeing that where the flood happened, because, well, south of the dam, it's flooded. North of the dam, it's now dry. Well, at least the river is much smaller than it was. And they're finding bodies of like Nazi soldiers from they're finding skeletons of Nazi soldiers from World War II with like their helmets and stuff intact. Thank you, Martin. I mean, wild stuff, just wild. All right, guys, I'm going to do a quick summary and then we'll be out of here. It's almost 7:30 anyway. Here we go. Metallium says Wagner also funds itself from operations in Africa, namely in the Central African Republic. But what was your first answer? So I didn't see here whether the first part is Russian government. So Russian government is doing some of it, and some of it is self-funded, so to speak, because of all these mineral deals they've done. Okay. Interesting. All right, let me do a quick summary of the news, and then we'll get going. I'm not going to do Discord tonight because it's already 7:30, and I'm starving. I do eat before the show, but sometimes we hit at 7:30. It's 7:30 at night for me, and I'm not a European. So I'm hungry. Thank you, Martin, for the hanging lights. I'm going to skip it tonight. Sorry, guys. Day 473 of Putin's 3-day special military operation. Ukraine liberated 7 settlements over the past week, about 80 miles north of Mariupol. Ukraine is still approaching serious defensive lines in Zaporizhia and Donetsk provinces, or Donetsk province now, really. But in other words, there's some scary Russian defenses coming up. So even though Ukraine's done well in the last few days, that doesn't mean, that doesn't, we should be happy, but qualified. They've still got really tough battles coming. Over the weekend, Ukraine blew up Crimea's main rail links to Russia over the near the Kerch Bridge and via Melitopol. There were also artillery attacks and explosions in Tokmak and Melitopol in Russian-occupied areas. Ukraine officials anticipate UK officials are saying they anticipate a major Ukrainian attack in Donbass in the next few days. Ukraine did lose a number of Bradley vehicles, as I was telling you, in the early days of the war. It doesn't look like it was an ongoing thing, but it was a significant number. It wasn't great. It wasn't great news. Hopefully, it was a one-time mistake. Dutch website says that. Oh, I'm sorry. No, moving on with this. Oh, Russia did blow up a second dam as well in Ukraine. Fortunately, it did not do as much damage. Could the flood help by clearing out Russian defenses? We talked about this, that basically in the end, when the floodwaters recede and the ground dries, oh, now the sun's coming out. Oh, sorry. Okay, you're going to get a little reflection now. Didn't think the sun was coming out today. If the ground dries and the floodwaters recede, could Ukraine then attack over the river in Kherson? And if so, the floods have now knocked out a lot of the Russian defenses. That is true. So potentially in the end, this could benefit Ukraine attacking in the end, even though right now it's hurting their attack. Russian allies in eastern Ukraine, in other words, Ukrainians that are fighting for the Russians, allegedly, the wounded soldiers, thank you, Isabelle, the wounded soldiers are being locked in the basements without very good medical care or anything. They're basically prisoners of the Russian army. I think because they think these guys are wounded, they're going to just like give up and go home, and they don't want them to go home. So they've locked these guys up, and their families are complaining. Russian Defense Minister Shoigu announced that all volunteers with the Wagner Group, for example, are going to have to sign contracts with the Russian Ministry of Defense in order for the Russian Ministry to get them under control and for them to control them more versus just Prigozhin controlling them. And Prigozhin told them not to sign the contract. The maker of the Patriot air system says it is creating it's building 5 more Patriots for Ukraine, but it might take until the end of 2024 to get them. The Dutch are hoping to start training Ukrainians on F-16s this summer. More than 250 aircraft and 10,000 personnel began a 2-week military exercise on Monday involving NATO nations and Japan. An American musician, Michael Travis Leak, was arrested on drug charges in Moscow. Mondelez International, a company behind Oreo and Toblerone, is facing widening boycotts in the Nordic region over its continuing presence in Russia, evil people. And finally, a Ukrainian man who fled the Russian invasion bought a €5 or $5 lottery ticket in Belgium and won the $500,000 jackpot. €500,000, $500,000 jackpot, which is very cool. So thank you guys for joining us. Monday, June 12th. I will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S. I'm going to yawn at you. At least I'm not yawning until the end. Oh, sorry, not yawning until the end. But I'm here every day, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. And we'll be back for another show talking about the latest from Ukraine. So thank you for joining us on TikTok. Thank you for joining us, all the rest of you. Please do come back tomorrow. And as I said, please do help out if you can with the Kofi.com donations. Aravosis.com, or actually Kofi's at the bottom of the screen for you guys. Go to my link on TikTok, click it, and scroll down for the Kofi.com, ko-fi.com/Aravosis, and that's how you can start a monthly donation, which I would very much appreciate. Thank you, guys. Thank you, moderators. As always, see you all tomorrow. All right. Good night. Good night.